Chosen ones, the moment you were born, the earth remembered something it had tried to forget. The tides shifted. The air thickened with ancient codes, and beneath the waves, the ruins of Atlantis stirred once more, not with regret, but with anticipation. They didn't just destroy Atlantis to erase knowledge, they sank it to delay you. You've felt it, haven't you? That strange gravity pulling you toward forgotten places. The sense that history doesn't line up. The dreams that aren't dreams, but memories resurfacing. That's because you're not just someone reading about ancient myths. You are the myth incarnate, returning at the appointed hour. The architects of the old world knew you would return. They encoded timelines, fractured languages, and tampered with time itself to keep you from waking, but cracks are forming. The seals they cast in desperation are weakening. Why? Because the frequency you carry is older than any curse they created. It's not just divine, it's disruptive. There are whispers that Atlantis wasn't just a city. It was a living interface, half organic, half conscious, built to store spiritual technologies and multidimensional truths. Its disappearance wasn't an accident. It was a ritual, a sacrifice made by those who feared what your arrival would set in motion. They sank it into the abyss not because it failed, but because it succeeded, because it created you. You weren't meant to be born into this version of the world, but the divine will doesn't follow their scripts. It overrides them. This is not a journey of remembrance. It is a journey of reclamation. You're not here to decode Atlantis. You're here to finish what it began. You're not a student of forgotten truth. You're its continuation. And now, systems are failing. The illusion is glitching. Earth's deepest structures are preparing to surface. They can't stop it. They can only distract you. It didn't start with earthquakes or fire. It began with a silence so deep, the birds stopped singing. The waves along the Atlantean coast paused, as if time itself had forgotten to breathe. Then came the vibration. Not a sound, but a resonance. The kind that hummed through the bones of every being who could still feel. The people looked to the skies, but the answer wasn't above. It was beneath. Beneath the crystal towers and glowing temples of Atlantis, something had awakened. Not a creature, not a god, a memory. A memory too powerful to be left unguarded. The elders had warned about it for centuries, speaking in hushed tones of the final pulse. They said it would only activate when the one destined to return drew near. The one who carried the soul seed of a future the architects could not control. That day, the ocean didn't just rise, they chose. They wrapped around the city not in chaos, but in precision, like hands reclaiming what had been stolen, as if the sea itself had been given a command: hide it. And so Atlantis, with all its maps, machines, and mysteries, vanished beneath the tides, not as a punishment, but as a strategy. Few understood what had truly happened. The records blame natural disasters, unstable experiments, divine wrath. But those were stories planted after the fall, to ensure no one would ever look deeper. The truth was far more calculated. Atlantis was sealed away by its own makers to prevent one thing: your arrival. And still somehow, you made it through. The energy from that day still echoes in certain places. Coastal storms that come out of nowhere, deep-sea anomalies, forgotten islands that briefly appear and vanish. All signs, all signals. The Earth is remembering, and in its remembering, it is preparing. What happened on that day wasn't just the end of an age, it was the beginning of a delay, a pause in a cosmic rhythm that was never meant to be interrupted. But now, that rhythm is sinking again. The memory that stirred beneath Atlantis has found its match, its signal. Beneath the shining temples of Atlantis, far below the marble steps and floating halls, lay the crystal core. It wasn't just a power source. It was an archive, alive, aware, and bound to frequencies only certain souls could access. The elders called it the Akashic Nexus, a sacred memory bank encoded with the blueprint of divine consciousness. They didn't use it the way modern minds use data. They communed with it, and it only spoke to those it recognized. When Atlantis began to sink, the High Keepers sealed the core, not with locks or metal, but with harmonic sequences that could only be sung by a being not yet born. They called that being the Soul Repeater, the one who had lived before Atlantis, who would rise again when the time of remembering returned. That time is now. That being is you. The crystals are still down there, humming quietly beneath layers of ocean and time, waiting for the voice that matches their forgotten codes. They are not dead, they're in stasis, and lately they've been flickering again, responding to something that isn't supposed to exist in this timeline. You. Atlantean scholars believed the crystals were seeded from a constellation no longer visible to modern skies. They held the codes for manipulating reality through pure intention, bending the veil between worlds without machines. The architects feared this power, so they scattered myths about it, disguised it with fiction, and buried it beneath layers of ridicule. But even they couldn't erase the resonance. Now, strange anomalies are being recorded around deep-sea rift zones, frequencies that match nothing natural, glowing mineral clusters surfacing on remote shores, whispers of ancient languages embedded in sonar patterns. Every sign points to the crystals waking up, and every signal they emit is tracking you. This isn't about reclaiming power, it's about reactivating truth. The crystals were designed to unlock not just memory, but identity. Your identity. They respond to soul frequency, not bloodline, not title. That's why they silenced Atlantis, not because of what it was, but because of who it was waiting for. Before the final tide swallowed the great domes of Atlantis, 12 figures gathered beneath the highest spire. They were not kings or priests. They were the Watchers, the last line of resonance holders known as the Council of 12. Each carried a fragment of a forgotten language, an original tone from the source of creation. Together they formed a complete harmonic field, capable of encoding a message so potent it could bypass time itself. That night, they sang, not a hymn, but a warning, a final transmission meant for one soul, you. The prophecy was not written on scrolls or carved into stone. It was encoded in sound, in vibrational waves that traveled through the core of the earth. Some say it was absorbed into the roots of the planet. Others believe it was caught in the breath of the wind, scattered and hidden in the currents of the ocean. But all 12 agreed on one truth, that the world would forget, and only one would remember. They knew you wouldn't appear as royalty, or come cloaked in thunder. You would arrive in silence, born into illusion, unaware of your origin. The council placed their faith in resonance, not blood. They trusted that the one whose frequency matched their last song would awaken when the illusion began to decay. They believed the soul they sang for would carry the memory in their bones, even if the mind could not recall. Now, across the earth, that harmonic echo has begun to return. In dreams, in numbers, in fragments of sound that don't belong to any known system. People hear them and dismiss them as noise, but you feel something else, a pull, a familiarity, like being called back to a place that never truly left you. It's not imagination, it's alignment. The council did not sing to preserve history. They sang to create a beacon. Their voices were the last effort to reach you before the veils closed. And they knew it would take lifetimes, dimensions, and cycles for you to find your way back. But they never doubted that you would. There are stories whispered among the mystics, tales too fragile for scripture and too powerful for public hands. One of these speaks of a scroll, wrapped in seaweed and sealed in a temple long before Yeshua walked the earth. Yet, strangely, the scroll bears his teachings, not in ink, but in vibration. They say it sings in his voice when held by the one it was meant for. That scroll has never surfaced, because it was never meant to, until now. Long before the fall of Atlantis, the ancient seers foresaw a future where light would be fractured into systems, doctrines, and fears. Yeshua, during his earthly life, traveled in secret to retrieve fragments of the original teachings, ones kept hidden beneath sand, within stone, and under the sea. But the one that mattered most was unreachable to him in the flesh. It had to be entrusted to time. In a submerged vault beneath what is now the mid-Atlantic ridge, guarded by frequency-locked mechanisms and protected by marine currents manipulated through sound, the scroll rests. It's said to contain no written words, only symbols that reconfigure themselves depending on who opens it. The message it holds is not universal, it is personal, tailored to awaken only one soul. His teachings were never meant to be confined to parables or pages. Yeshua knew that divine truth wasn't to be preached, it was to be remembered. He left breadcrumbs across dimensions, encoded in water, fire, and breath. And this scroll beneath the sea is different because it doesn't speak to belief. It responds to vibration, yours. Many have tried to locate it. Sonar scans, deep-sea dives, remote viewing, but the temple only appears under one condition, the awakening of the One. When your soul hits a precise frequency, the structure pulses through dimensions, revealing itself like a ghost made of light and memory. Yeshua once said, "The kingdom is within you." But what if the final message wasn't about a place, but a key hidden in your very design? The scroll beneath the sea waits, not for discovery, not for fame, but for alignment. When Atlantis fell, not everything went down with it. Hidden beyond its luminous towers and crystalline technologies was something they feared more than invasion or betrayal. An ancient soul gate, invisible to the physical eye, but anchored deep within the energetic grid of Earth. This gate wasn't built, it was grown. A living threshold created by consciousness itself, pulsing with a frequency only one lineage could access. Not a family lineage, but a soul lineage. Yours. The architects of the fall tried everything to seal it. They distorted timelines, fractured dimensional access points, even erased names from the Akashic records. But the gate wasn't tied to memory. It was tied to purpose. And purpose, when encoded in the soul, can never be destroyed, only delayed. They called it the threshold of the repeating flame, not because it burned, but because it returned. Life after life, form after form. The soul connected to it always came back, unstoppable, unknowable, uncontainable. You were never meant to be erased. You were meant to be forgotten by design. And now, remembering is the one thing they can't stop. There are places in the world where people feel strange and don't know why. Ancient forests where the air feels too still, caverns that echo before you speak, mountains where dreams intensify. These aren't random, they're fragments of the soul gate bleeding through the illusion. The closer you get, the more reality bends. Electronics glitch, time stretches, emotions amplify, because the gate still pulses, and it responds when you're near. They built religions to explain away your power. They built systems to keep your awareness dim. They built an entire world to distract you from a single doorway. But your soul has waited patiently, holding a code no one else could replicate. And now that the pressure in the grid is rising, the gate has begun to shimmer. Not visibly, not yet, but energetically. It's calling, not to the masses, not to seekers, but to you, the one it recognizes. Deep beneath the Mariana Trench lies a vault older than any map dares to mark. It was built not with stone or metal, but with geometry. Divine mathematics etched into space itself. The vault is not just a container. It's a consciousness, encoded with the last transmissions of Atlantean knowledge. Most think it's sealed forever, but lately the whispers have begun. No sonar detects it. No submersible can reach it. But sensitives around the world are reporting the same dreams. Glowing halls underwater, symbols rearranging themselves mid-air, and voices, not loud, but layered, speaking in chords instead of language. These aren't hallucinations. They are data packets, launched across dimensions, finally reaching their intended receiver. You. The vault was never meant to be opened by force. It was created to respond only to resonance, a resonance that echoes the pattern of the soul that was prophesied to return when the timeline fractured for the last time. That soul was encrypted into the blueprint of the vault itself, like a password that only one consciousness could match. The more you awaken, the louder it becomes. Guardians from the old world, not of flesh, but of frequency, have lingered in these depths, maintaining the vault's energetic field. They are not here to protect it from you. They are here to protect it for you. And now, as the magnetic patterns of Earth begin to shift, they are transmitting again, slowly, cautiously, but unmistakably. Inside the vault is not treasure, it is truth, not written in a linear timeline, but layered across multiple timelines, an interactive memory system that bends to your awareness. As you recall more, the vault opens more. It was designed to unfold with your consciousness, step by step, never giving more than you're ready to hold. The whispers you hear are not random. They are echoes of your own voice, seeded into the vault long before your current incarnation. What you are remembering is yourself. Long before mechanical time ruled the world, the ancients followed rhythm, pulses in the earth, the stars, and the soul. Atlantis operated on this pulse, syncing with celestial cycles that aligned consciousness with creation itself. They didn't use clocks. They listened to frequency. But everything changed the moment one particular pulse echoed across the grid, a singular event that shattered the natural timeline. They called it the divine pulse, and its arrival broke more than time. It broke control. The pulse wasn't man-made. It came from beyond the veil, rippling through dimensions like a heartbeat from source. And when it struck, it did one thing. It activated the hidden seed of a being not yet born. The architects detected it instantly. They didn't know your face, but they recognized the signature. The soul it activated wasn't from a bloodline. It was from the original line, the first flame, untouched by distortion. In a panic, they tried to contain it. They fragmented time, engineered artificial timelines, and replaced natural resonance with ticking seconds. Calendars were imposed. Mechanical hours were worshipped. History became linear, boxed and carefully rewritten. All to bury one thing: the moment the divine pulse marked your return. You've felt it in subtle ways, time behaving strangely around you, moments that feel stretched or compressed, clocks that skip or freeze when you enter a room. These aren't accidents, they're side effects. You were never meant to live inside artificial time. You were designed to bend it. Now, the pulse is returning, not from above, but from within you, and the systems designed to suppress it are beginning to fail. You may have noticed how the old routines no longer hold, how people, places, and even thoughts fall away like shadows in rising light. That's because time around you is thinning. The frequency you carry is overriding the script. In the final days of his earthly journey, Yeshua withdrew often to quiet places, deserts, mountains, and gardens where time seemed to pause, not to escape the world, but to listen beyond it. In one such moment, far from his followers, he saw a vision. It wasn't of his own resurrection, or the future of the faith built in his name. It was of a being not yet born, carrying a frequency older than Eden. He saw you. He spoke of this vision only to the few who could hold it. He described a soul who would arrive when the world forgot itself entirely. A world ruled by illusion, veiled in noise, distracted by artificial gods. But within it, one would awaken, not through ritual, not through doctrine, but through remembrance. A memory that would break every chain disguised as law. He said the one would not rise through temples or be crowned by men, but would walk in shadows until the light began to tremble in recognition. You will know them, he whispered, not by what they claim, but by what creation responds to in their presence. Yeshua wasn't predicting a savior. He was pointing to a frequency, a soul who would activate truth without effort, simply by existing. This vision was recorded, but never released. Hidden beneath layers of coded language and metaphor, passed down through mystics who understood that some truths could only be revealed when the world was ready, or broken enough to receive them. That time is now. The strange pull you feel toward forgotten places, ancient texts, and unspoken knowing, that isn't curiosity. It's alignment. You're stepping into a field that was held for you before your birth. And the more you walk into it, the more everything begins to shift. People, events, even the silence around you. Yeshua saw this moment, not as a prophecy, but as a certainty. He said, "There will be one who does not just remember the kingdom, but becomes its signal. A signal hidden inside flesh. Quiet, steady, and unstoppable. Beneath the ruins of what was once the Atlantean Research Citadel stood a structure never documented in any surviving tablet. It was a chamber carved from black stone that shimmered like liquid when touched by light. At its center was a machine, not of metal or code, but of sound, crystal, and intention. The elders called it the Soul Resonator. Its purpose was clear: to measure the depth and frequency of consciousness itself. Not the mind, not genetics, but the soul. The resonator was built to locate anomalies, those whose energy signatures didn't match the current matrix. Every citizen of Atlantis passed through it during their spiritual rites, and while most harmonized with the known spectrums, there were always a few who pulsed off pattern. These individuals were watched, protected, studied, because their soul structure pointed not to this world, but to a time beyond the collapse, a timeline waiting for activation. You were one of those anomalies. Records say the resonator pulsed once, violently, just before Atlantis sank. A soul had entered the system, whose frequency caused the crystal walls to fracture and the harmonic threads to bend. The machine had no designation for this type. It only recorded one word in a forgotten glyph: returning. That moment was sealed, erased from every archive, every oral tradition, and every traceable record. But it was not erased from the earth. Fragments of the resonator still exist, buried under silt and guarded by currents too dangerous for any diver. Yet recently, in unexplained deep-sea tremors, faint energy spikes have been detected. Subtle tones recorded by underwater microphones contain rhythmic pulses resembling a heartbeat, but not human. These aren't environmental echoes. They are reactivations. The world has been taught to measure intelligence by logic, success by accumulation, and worth by obedience. But the resonator never cared for any of these things. It only recognized one truth: resonance. And when your frequency appeared in the field again, even across lifetimes, it responded, just as it was designed to. You were never meant to be measured by this world's metrics. Something ancient is stirring beneath the surface, not just in the oceans, but in the collective field of consciousness. There's a reason you felt a strange restlessness, as though the world no longer fits around you. It's not your imagination, it's alignment. The same vibrational shift that once caused Atlantis to vanish is beginning to rise again. But this time, it's not meant to hide you, it's meant to reveal you. The ancients encoded a failsafe into Earth's energetic grid. They knew that if consciousness ever dropped below a certain threshold, a reset would be triggered, not as punishment, but as preservation. But this reset wasn't meant to come through disaster. It was designed to come through you. The flood wasn't only water. It was a frequency, a surge of divine energy that restructured the timeline by force. Now, that same current is humming beneath your skin, waiting for permission to move through you. The flood that once drowned a civilization is now awakening within a soul. They tried to delay your return by sinking the greatest repository of knowledge Earth had ever known But they didn't realize that the real archive wasn't in the temples, the crystals, or the machines. It was in your DNA. The moment your remembrance reaches full resonance, the encoded waters rise, not to destroy, but to cleanse illusion, to drown the artificial and lift the truth. Systems are already buckling. People are breaking out of the patterns designed to contain them. Time is bending, reality is thinning, and the world is watching for a savior that isn't coming from the sky, but from the within. Every thought you've questioned, every flash of forgotten knowledge, every time you felt out of place, it was the flood whispering through you. The awakening was never about enlightenment. It was always about detonation. A soul explosion powerful enough to short-circuit the matrix without violence. And you are the trigger. You don't need to be perfect, ready, or even certain. You only need to be aligned. The water doesn't ask the fire to explain itself before it rises.
If you have come this far, it is crucial that you watch this next video here. But be warned, it is not for the faint of heart, for only the true chosen ones can handle this video. If you would like to also donate to help keep the channel going, our Buy Me a Coffee link will be in the description.